evening, everybody. Here we are again with yet another set of updates, this time on the Dylan Rounds case. So hopefully people on my channel are still following Dylan Rounds. It's another case that's strange. Details are odd. And this has been going on 5 months now. Dylan went missing on May 26th of this year, Memorial Day weekend. And there's been some updates. So Candice, Cooley and Justin Rounds, Dylan's parents, have been on East Idaho News and given Nate Eaton an interview. And there's some interesting details that have come out. I haven't seen it all. I started watching it about an hour ago and thought, I want to see what you guys think. I thought I want to watch it with you. So I've listened to about the first 5 minutes. And then I decided to go live, so I set up my scheduler. So that's where we are. That's what I'm going to be doing. And absolutely justice for Dylan Rounds. And I think there will be. Justice for Dylan. But the wheels of justice turn very slowly. And I think that's definitely what we're seeing in this case. So let's just wait for a few more people to come in before we start. Hi Holly, only grands. I know, all kinds of updates. I know every case that I'm following seems to have had updates lately. So the easiest way, the most efficient way to do updates is going live. So that's why I've been live such a lot. The cat's just walked across my keyboard. Dear me. Yeah, so that's why I've been live a lot lately. Good afternoon, Sasha and Sandra. Who else have we got in? Julie, Dawn, Whiskey Boots. Dolly is live outside of Grandma's house. Oh, that's regarding Quinton, isn't it? Sasha says, any updates on Quinton? Nothing noteworthy. I'll share my screen and I'll share an update, just a very brief tweet from Chatham County Sheriff's Office, who've given this update. I shared it on my Twitter. Here we go. So, Chatham County Police Department, an hour ago, dozens of agents and investigators continue to gather and analyse evidence in the Quinton Simon case. While the work continues through the weekend, we do not anticipate any searches or public activity today through Sunday. If that changes, we will update you as quickly as possible. So that's the only significant update that I've seen today. Oh, Kylie's trending, look. Kylie's trending. Okay, so there's been some rumours. There has been some rumours. I don't know whether I want to set any store by those rumours, though. There was a rumour that cadaver dogs had hit on a scent at the landfill, but there's nothing confirmed by law enforcement. Obviously, this is a very new, very active investigation, so they're not going to update us on every single thing they find. So that could well be true, and why they're focusing on the landfill, why Grandma says that he's at the landfill. But I think we're just going to have to be patient a little longer. But Lani hasn't been arrested or anything like that. So that's all. But I will be monitoring that very closely over the weekend. Hi, Cheryl. Hi, Julie. Kelvis. Excited to finally catch a live chat. Well, I've been live a lot lately, so go back and watch some of the replays. Ah, Dawn's already watched it. Oh, you've already watched it. I'm guessing some of you will have already watched it. It only came out today. But yeah, like I said, I've only watched the first 5 minutes and I just wanted to jump on and see what you guys think of it, because it does sound very interesting. Sassafras Kath, hello. Who else have we got in? Only Grands, Burlington Park, Neela, Cheryl, Thunder Horse, Dahlia, Amanda, Diane, Cammy, JD, hello, everybody. Justrina, hello. Poetry Emotion Tracker, Broken Goth Doll, Birdie, hello. Virginia, Deets on the Streets, Nudge, Vegan Firefly, Jean, and loads of people coming in now. So that's good. I'm happy to see that there are people who are still interested in Dylan's case. So I've listened to this already. They've only got one hope of help for people with drones and tech equipment. So much for law enforcement. Box County is treating PD. Oh, yeah, I know. So some of you have already seen it, but yeah, I haven't. I haven't. So let's get on with it. So this is East Idaho news that I'll be sharing today. So the link to this is in the description box of this video. So please do go over. I'm using this for fair use for commentary and education, etc. I've put the link to this in chat as well. So if you haven't seen it and you want to just watch it all the way through, please do go and give East Idaho News the view. That would be very kind of you to do that. Trixie Star's in the house. Hi, Trixie Star. She's my wonderful moderator. I think I've only got 2 mods on this channel. I'm going to have to get some more mods so that Trixie is very light-fingered. You know, she's on the go all the time. So I think we need to recruit a few more mods. Anyway, let's go with this interview. I can still see the chat on my other screen, so just let me know that the sound is okay once it starts playing. It should be, but you never know with StreamYard. StreamYard does have glitches and stuff, and usually it's easily solved. The cat's in the way now. She's trying to get back on my keyboard. You go over there. You're so annoying. Go on. There we go. All right, let's go.
I made it in talking with Candice, Cooley, and Justin Rounds today. These are Dylan Rounds' parents. It's been several months since he disappeared right before Memorial Day. And his parents are here today because they want to talk about some new developments on their end, also raise awareness that he is still missing.
Yes.
6-7 months later now?
5.
5 months. Okay.
5 months. So I will obviously keep stopping this under fair use. I have to, but also I want to give my commentary on this. Yoda says, please hit the thumbs up. Please do. It does help with the YouTube algorithm if you like the stream. Sound is great. Thank you, Sasha. That's good. Sound is fine. All good. Good. All right. So Dylan was last heard from by his grandma very early. It was about 10 to 7 in the morning. He'd been planting his crop and it was about to rain. So he rang his grandma quickly and said, he rang her and then said, I've got to go. And this is completely normal for Dylan, apparently, that he'll ring up, say one thing and then get off the phone. All right. So he's just giving a quick update that he was planting his grain. And this is Justin's mother, so his paternal grandparents, who help him out with the farm financially. They bought the land so that he could farm there in Lucin, Utah. The family itself is from Idaho, but land is too expensive in Idaho, so he liked the land around Lucin because it meant that he could build it up from scratch, like get the ground ready and plant and really develop that area. And Dylan, only 19, but very industrious, ambitious young man, just, had farming in his blood. He comes from a farming family. I think the Rounds family are farmers. Dylan had been out there planting his crop, and grandma rang him back later on in the day, didn't get any answer from him, rang Jim and Don, who's Jim Brenner, that we'll talk about, and Don, who is a guy that does some work on Dylan's farm, but they'd had an argument a couple of weeks before. The Rounds family, or at least Grandpa, knew Jim and Don, and they said, we haven't seen him. So then on the Monday, the 28th, the family went out to Lucin, kind of travel south from Idaho to Lucin, Utah, to see what was going on, to see where Dylan was. And he has not been seen. And there was some very strange things that they noted from the get-go. One of them was Dylan's boots that were on a dirt pile or next to a dirt pile. And that's one of the things that we're updating on today is there's been an admission by Jim Brenner. So let's get into that. Jim Brenner, by the way, has been, he's been called a suspect. He's the only suspect in the case, according to law enforcement. He is in jail on unrelated charges. So he's not going anywhere, but he has not yet been charged. And I say yet because I think it's coming. That's just my opinion. He's not been charged with Dylan's disappearance, Dylan's murder, or any other kind of foul play. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Birdie. Dylan's mum is so strong. She absolutely is. She's a powerhouse. She's tiny. She's only something like 4'11", but she's an absolute powerhouse. But I think the whole family's united in just trying to get the news out, you know, for just raise awareness, keep Dylan's name out there. And that's just what we've got to do. And the fact that there's these new developments that East Idaho News are publicising, that's obviously great for Dylan's case. Congratulations, Thunderhorse. Just got my first great-granddaughter on the 9th. Oh, that's lovely. Oh, okay, let's go.
Thanks for coming in, you guys. Candice, let's just start right from the beginning. Right before Memorial Day, that weekend, Dylan calls his grandmother, says he has to get the grain truck inside the shed because it was going to start to rain, to pick it up from there.
So then he was going to call her back and nobody heard from him. So that's when by Monday we had all touched on base on May 30th that morning and nobody had heard from Dylan. And
oh, I made a mistake there. He went missing on the 28th. And it was on the 30th. I said the 26th and the 28th. Apologies for that. So he was last heard from on the 28th of May. And the early morning phone call to his grandma. And then it was on the 30th that the family went out there. So it has been a while since I've looked into this case. And there's been so many different cases and different updates. And trying to keep it all in my head is difficult. But yeah, so the 30th of May, they went out there and that's when they found Dylan's boots.
And that's when we all headed to the farm. So that was the last contact that day. So when we got out there, we called Box Elder, made a missing persons report. Search and rescue came out, a couple officers, and that's when maybe an hour and a half into the search, that's when his boots were found behind the dirt pile.
And on the boots was blood. Random place to find boots.
Correct. We now know how the boots got there.
Can you tell us?
Brenner has admitted he's the one who took the boots out there.
That is a bit of a mic drop moment, honestly. I was like, oh my word, Dylan's boots. Jim Brenner has admitted to placing the boots on the dirt pile. The blood on the boots is huge, absolutely, Julie. And it was awful just how long it took law enforcement to get that result back. And it was only a very small amount of blood. But they... yeah, blood on the boots. I mean, you know, I guess blood, he's a farmer. He could have cut himself. But just wait what you hear about what Jim Brenner has allegedly said about the boots. Hint, spoiler alert, in my opinion, it's a big fat lie. Dylan's blood, Heather Feather. Dylan's blood. It was the boots were sent off for testing eventually, and it came back that Dylan's blood was on the boots. Only a very small amount, but Yeah. Daisy knows the dirt pile has allegedly been checked, so they don't believe he's under the dirt pile. The dirt pile has been there for a long time, so there's no way that it could have been buried under the dirt pile without it being blatantly obvious that that dirt pile had been messed with. Candice has talked about that on previous interviews, so that is not true, according to Dylan's family.
So James Brenner was a man squatting on nearby property, correct?
On the same property the grain shed's on.
On the same property of the grain shed. James and Dylan knew each other.
Correct.
Friends?
He worked for him off and on.
Acquaintances.
Yeah,
Kind of became
acquaintances.
somewhat
Yeah.
friends.
Okay. So James has since told you guys,
Told law enforcement.
told law enforcement that he put Dylan's boots there.
Correct.
How did he get Dylan's boots?
So he's told law enforcement. So remember, he's in jail. Jim's in jail. And he's told law enforcement that he put the boots next to the dirt pile. There's still more. There's still more to this. But it's pretty shocking. Anyway, so Jim, the grain shed that they're talking about, and this is just a recap really for people who maybe are not quite so familiar with this case. The grain shed is 5 miles away from Dylan's farm. So these are huge properties. Like, this is just in the middle of the desert. So the grain shed is on someone else's property. That property owner allows people in that local area to use his property and use his grain shed. So because it was going to rain, Dylan doesn't have storage on his farm that's big enough to put his grain truck in. And because his grain truck had seed in it, because it was going to rain, he didn't want his grain to get wet. He didn't want his seeds to get wet because they'll start to germinate. And he obviously doesn't want that until they're in the ground. So that's why he went 5 miles to the grain shed to put his truck into the grain shed. Now, Jim Brenner lives on a trailer, or at least he did before he got put in jail, on that property, so close to the grain shed. So if Dylan went there early on the Saturday morning, the 28th, it's likely that he would have run into Jim because Jim lives on that property in a trailer. So, and True Crime Utah, Lauren Dellen, is in the chat. She's been to some of the hearings and things for Jim Brenner. There's more that hasn't been publicly disclosed yet. Ooh, that's interesting. That's very interesting. Okay.
So he said he found him by the shed, picked him up, moved him by his camper somewhere, and then decided that Dylan wasn't coming back for them. Those boots, and Dylan hadn't been there in almost a month. He was over working in Independence Valley and on the wine cup. Dylan had not been to Lucin. And Brenner had said he hadn't seen Dylan in months.
And that might be true that Jim says he hasn't seen Dylan in months because Dylan didn't live on that farm full time. So these are the details that it's important to know so that you get kind of the context of how all of this is playing out. Because these are very, very isolated properties, there's hardly anyone lives there. Like, the population of Lucin is like next to nobody. And very, very few people pass through Lucin. And Dylan had a trailer, actually had a couple of trailers on his farm property. So one he lived in, one that he stored things in. But he didn't live there. He only lived there, he put his head down, to have a snooze in that trailer when he was actually on his farm. And he was only on his farm when he was preparing the land or planting, as he was this weekend. It was time to plant his grain. He made money through custom farming. So he would travel around kind of doing jobs for people, for farmers who will pay people to do some of their farming for them. So he was a custom farmer. He had his own business as a custom farmer. So Dylan traveled around. So it's actually quite plausible that Jim hadn't seen Dylan for quite some time, a month or even more. And then when he wasn't custom farming, he'd spend time at his mother's house, he'd spend time at his father's house, he'd spend time with his grandparents. So, he'd be traveling to and from Idaho. He also spent time over the border in Nevada at a little town called Montello, where he would socialize and go and get his meals there. So him being on the farm at Lucin, actually, he was there a lot less than probably people imagine. So yeah. Okay. Oh, True Crime Utah Glorindellen says, yes, I'm aware of one damning piece of evidence which they are aware of, which has come to me behind the scenes. I thought maybe she would have mentioned it since she outed the boots. Oh, you're giving spoilers here. You're making me really, really curious. Anyway, let's carry on.
A month, somewhere in that timeline. Those boots were not in that desert during that rainstorm on Friday. Those boots didn't even have dust on them. I bet you when Brenner put them there, or mud, it was Monday when he knew we were coming out and he had to get rid of them.
Okay, so back up a little bit.
And I assume that he thought just putting them on the dirt pile wouldn't raise too many suspicions. This is just my opinion. Because if somebody's going to throw an old pair of boots away, they're going to throw them on a dirt pile. So he probably didn't realize that Dylan was very particular about the type of boots he wore, or that the family would really hone in on the boots. But Dylan was very particular about the type of boots he wore. He'd wear one pair of boots at a time and he'd wear them out before he got new ones. Now, it's possible that he had other shoes that his family didn't know about. But, these boots were his work boots. And as Candice said, if what Jim said was right, they would have had dust on them. If they'd been out there for a month or more and Dylan had just left them there, they'd have dust on them from the desert. They'd have rain on them because it'd been raining. But there was nothing. So I think what Jim is saying is a big fat lie. I really do. I think he's lying. He's lying.
He said he found the boots by his shed.
By the shed.
By the shed that was there. And that he hadn't seen Dylan in a month. So he needed to just get rid of them. Or
pick them up and move them twice. And then
So that he moved them from the shed area to behind the dirt pile.
He moved them twice, from the shed area to by his camper, I guess, and then. So
Dylan had said Dylan had called my mom at roughly around the gate.
Yes.
Where the phone pinged. Right after that, he called Brenner. And Brenner had said he'd been at his place all day Friday and all day Saturday until 2:30. And he went to a barbecue.
And never seen Dylan.
And never saw anyone. And Dylan's phone was shown pinging at the grain shed and then went back to Dylan's on Saturday.
Camper.
And then came back to Jim's and then left and went all the way to the Lucin Pond. And that's where we found Dylan's phone.
Was in
Lucin Pond.
So originally the phone was missing. And it was quite a while before they released that they had the phone, that they finally found the phone. But these phone pings, I think, are very significant. Phone pings are always significant. When phones can be tracked, it's very significant. The fact that phone was moving around when it's likely that Dylan was already missing is a very important piece of information. So the phone was found in a pond. Now, Dylan wasn't at that pond. Dylan is nowhere around. Dylan has not been to that pond. They've searched that pond. Dylan is not in the pond. Why is his phone in the pond? It's almost like someone threw the phone away, forgetting maybe that phones do ping. you know, when they move around. Nellie B, he used to have pigs. He did have pigs. I don't think he had any pigs at the time, or any other animals at the time. I think I know where you're going with that statement. I don't know how many other farmers in the area would have had pigs, though. But, okay.
Okay, so
so Kurt has pigs. I knew someone had pigs. Thank you, Cammy. I knew someone had pigs. Kurt's another person in this story. In the early days of this case, I was really looking at Kurt Wadsworth and his brother Troy Wadsworth, the whole Wadsworth family I was looking into. But I think since the information about Jim Brenner has come out, I think they've got their man. I think they've got the right man in jail. Now, in my opinion, it doesn't mean to say Jim is the only person who knows what happened to Dylan. I think there might be other people who know what happened to Dylan, or even helped Jim dispose of Dylan if he indeed he is dead. But that's just my opinion. We're just going to have to wait and see on this.
The first kind of big development that you're sharing is that the boots, Brenner has told law enforcement that the boots, he put the boots out by the dirt pile.
Yeah.
The second thing that you just said, Justin, is that Dylan's phone was found in the pond.
Yes. The Sin Pond.
And it was pinging in Dylan's area, like Justin just explained, all day. That phone never left that area.
Right after the phone call to my mother, he called Jim Brenner, probably, I would assume, to open the gate. And then he went up to Jim Brenner's, the phone did, and was around there for a while, and then went back to Dylan's place, and then back to Jim Brenner's, and stayed there the rest of the day on Saturday until around 2:30 or so.
Which is when Brenner said he stopped at the pond before he went to Don's for lunch.
This is really, really damning for Jim Brenner. Very damning for Jim Brenner. The fact that they knew that after he'd spoke to his grandma and he told his grandma that it was going to rain and he needed to go over to the grain shed, which, remember, is 5 miles away, then he rang Jim. So Jim saying that he didn't see Dylan that entire day is a lie. Is a lie. Because Dylan rang him. And then the phone takes itself, presumably with Dylan, over to the area where Jim lives. Remember, Jim lives near the grain shed. And then back to Dylan's, and then back to Jim's. And then to the pond, where Jim has admitted that he went. It's looking very, very bad for Jim, this. Very bad. Very bad for Jim.
So he placed himself at the pond when Dylan's phone was thrown in the pond.
And Brenner told this to law enforcement again. So Brenner said the day Dylan disappeared, which happened to be the same time that Dylan's phone is pinging by the pond, Brenner
from the backside of the property back to the pond.
Brenner said he stopped by the pond on his way to Dawn, who also lives out there, for lunch.
But going the back way. So if you pull up that picture, that first time Diesel Brothers was out there, you'd see, you got the pond over here, you got Brenner's, and you got Dylan's. So Dylan's phone made it to the pond the back way. The only person who takes that back way is Brenner.
Have they...
Sandra says, this Jim guy isn't the sharpest tool in the shed, is he? It's surprising. A lot of criminals aren't the sharpest tool in the shed, and which is why they get caught. The sharp ones, the sharp tools, unfortunately, don't get caught. So,
retrieved the phone.
Yes.
Do you know, is there any did it salvage any information, or is it
we had all this phone information already. We cloned it, and there was nothing.
There's nothing like as far as calls or texts or anything.
Nothing unusual.
What was the date of Saturday?
The 18th of June.
The 18th of June is when they found it. I was there.
Yeah, he was there.
And just to search and rescue, they'd been going across the pond all the way. Just as they were about to get to the very end, that's when they found it.
And you're saying the phone pinged at Brenner's trailer, at his property.
Yes.
But he said that he hadn't seen Dylan.
Correct.
Yes, and that he'd been there all day.
And that he'd been there all day, but
Friday
he never
and
seen
Saturday.
Dylan. But Dylan's phone's
And
pinging
Friday
there.
night, Dylan's phone was pinging out in where he was
Farming.
drilling.
Yep.
The triticale.
Which he had been there. Dylan, had
Yes.
been there.
Yes.
But as far as everything after that phone call to grandma, while there may have been movement on the phone, you don't know if that was actually him.
No,
holding the
we
phone.
know it wasn't Dylan.
You know
Well,
it wasn't Dylan.
Yeah.
I mean,
We would
You
assume.
assume.
yeah,
assume it
yeah.
wasn't.
I mean, that's why it wasn't answering. That's
We don't
why.
know when it went up and moved around to the grain shed, if Dylan was with the phone when it went back to Dylan's place.
Yeah.
Or if it went with Dylan. We don't know any of that.
The one thing is all the evidence is at where Brenner was squatting with that shed. So we don't feel it was Dylan going back to I mean, I think Dylan's phone, but I don't think it was Dylan.
So, Glorindellen says that Jim is a real hothead. Wouldn't take much to set him off. And that has been said. That has been said a number of times. And his criminal record kind of speaks to that, really, that he does things in anger. So perhaps Dylan, I mean, you never know, do you? You never know that this was an argument that just went really badly wrong. That I don't think that if somebody took Dylan's life, I don't think this was a crime that was planned. I don't think. I covered all of these theories in the really early days of the case. Like, was it planned? Were people sick of him? Was he, this young 19-year-old upstart who was perhaps maybe a little bit arrogant and flashing his money around? I talked through all of that early on in the case, but the way things have gone, in my opinion, it seems more like this was a fight that just went really badly wrong. And then that was covered up. That's kind of the sense I'm getting. And with Jim being, angry, Dylan ringing him early in the morning, saying, open the gate, because Jim had the key to the gate, to the grain shed. Open the gate, I need to get in. That's annoyed him. They've ended up having an argument and something went really badly wrong. Caught him on the wrong day, blacklisted. Bad blood resentment, caught him on the wrong day. Maybe there'd just been arguments and, he'd not seen Dylan for a while and just thought Dylan had gone. And then he gets this phone call and he's annoyed and, this is why Dylan and Don had an argument. Thank you, Blind Bob, for the $1.99. All I know is Michelle still doesn't know. Thank you, Blind Bob. Oh, you're the funniest troll in the world, Blind Bob. So that was what happened with Don. This is another guy who is a friend of Jim's. That Dylan and Don had an argument a few weeks before. Don was doing little bits of work for Dylan and they'd had an argument. So perhaps they didn't, these older guys perhaps didn't like the fact that Dylan was their boss and he was only 19, and it did set them off. But I don't think it was a premeditated all out to get Dylan. I don't get that sense of things, to be honest. I think this is a hothead who's gone completely over the top. And then, unfortunately, somebody loses their life. So sad. So sad.
So let's talk about Dylan's truck that was there on the property. You originally went out there and you guys got inside, right?
Broke the window.
Broke the window to get inside because you didn't have the key fob to unlock
Correct.
it. And what did you find in the truck?
Nothing.
Nothing unusual.
What we were looking for wasn't there. The gun.
The gun. That's all we were looking for was his guns.
His guns.
His guns. Did you ever find his guns?
The shotgun.
The shotgun was here in Idaho Falls. The guy that worked for me went to the house that Dylan stays at, and the shotgun was here. But the pistol we did not find.
Until it came back.
Until it came back a couple days later.
What do you mean until it came back?
So when we went to Dylan's farm, we were specifically looking for his guns. That was his guns and Dylan. 2 things. That was it. So we walked in the camper. Justin and I both walked in, go through it all. On his bathroom sink was his gun case. No gun in it. Opened it. You know, it's got the foam, nothing. Opened the medicine cabinet. The next day, his sister Justin's sister cleans out the bathroom for Karen to use. No gun. She sets her Clorox wipes right there. Next day, pistol laying there with the clip out of it. Broad daylight where we'd all looked.
So we heard that from the last update that Candice gave us. And again, that is alarming that pistol just arrived back in the trailer, in the camper. Thank you, Blind Bob. I'm glad I can make laugh. I don't know how I can do it. You're very funny. You're very funny. You're a natural jokester. We can't be mad at Blind Bob because he's just a natural comedian. Naturally funny. Some people are saying, what is Jim in jail for? Various charges, weapons charges. I can't remember the specifics, but existing warrants. He had a pre-existing warrant out for him. And they finally realised. So they could have got Jim in jail very quickly. But it took them a while. It took law enforcement a while to get their act together. But it's pre-existing warrants. So Glorindellen says weapons and an assault from 2021. There we go. So there was a warrant out for him. I knew it was something to do with weapons. So that's what they've got him on. It's quite common, actually. It happens in the UK as well when they want to keep someone in jail whilst a criminal investigation is going on. They want to keep someone in jail. They get them on a pre-existing warrant, or they were out on license, out on parole, and they've broken the conditions of the parole, and they get them. They get them and keep them because they're not going anywhere. If they're in jail, then they're not going anywhere. You know, it's what's happened with Adam Montgomery in the Harmony Montgomery case, and plenty of others. Oh, that's so sad. If Jim Brenner had been arrested on the 2021 charge, Dylan would probably still be alive. Oh, that's so sad.
So sometime overnight, you're saying someone entered and put the gun there.
Yep. Next day. Okay, so at this point, Box Elder is there. They're taking pictures. Next day, the key fob comes back. Same exact location. Somebody was putting his stuff back. And at this point, Box Elder is still not saying this is a crime scene. Something's going on out here. Nothing. People are everywhere. They do nothing about it.
So did you all find the gun and the key fob?
It was my son and Dylan's friend.
Yeah.
That walked in the trailer and said, oh, it's here.
Yeah.
I don't even think that they knew it was missing.
No, they didn't even know we were looking for it.
Because they weren't there when we broke the window and were looking.
But you're sure it wasn't there the first time?
Oh, absolutely not.
From what I heard, the law enforcement had taken pictures.
Yeah.
And it wasn't in the pictures.
Yeah, it absolutely was not there.
I'm glad, actually, that we've got some clarity that they did actually take pictures, because that was something after the last update when Candice talked about the gun and the key fob being returned to the camper. I speculated saying, well, law enforcement mustn't have taken any pictures then, because if law enforcement don't believe them that things were being returned to Dylan's camper, well, surely they could just, if they've taken pictures as they should have done, you know, potentially this is a crime scene, even though they weren't considering it a crime scene at the time. But I'm glad that they actually did take pictures. So law enforcement do have pictures of that area, and the fob, the gun, and weren't there. And then they were returned. Crazy. Crazy. Birdie, do I have any info on Candice that would be relevant? Someone thinks we should look into her past. I don't think Candice's past is relevant to this case. I know it was discussed early on about Candice's past. It's not something that has ever interested me. I don't believe any of the family are involved in this. It's not relevant. Unless her past is, you know, in some way a contributing factor to what Jim or anyone else might have done to Dylan by way of, I don't know, revenge or retribution, then it's not relevant to me, because I don't think she's involved at all. I don't think any of the family are involved at all. They were in Idaho, so there's not enough information for me to say I'm going to look at the family. Not at all. Not at all. So that's just my opinion, though. My opinion.
Neither one of them. And so when Dylan's grandparents brought the extra key fob, I set it in the exact same location. Walked to his pickup, hit the button, and it would unlock. It was close enough, it would still unlock it. That key fob and that gun were not there. They came back, and there was really only 2 people out there with access to put those back underneath our noses, and that was Brenner and then Don.
So,
see, Don is the other one that I'm side-eyeing. Now, Don is mentioned as DH in the paperwork that was released when Jim was arrested, as DH as a witness. So I think he, like reading between the lines, he snitched on Jim. But I'm not convinced that Don doesn't know what's gone on. I think at least one other person knows what's gone on, knows what's gone down here. Oh, okay. Don passed a lie detector test, says Glorin Dellen. Yeah, I don't... See, the thing with lie detector tests is that they're not always accurate. I mean, I don't know. I've kind of heard like figures around like 70%, 80% in some studies accurate. I mean, there's enough problems with them for them not to be admissible in court. I mean, it's an interesting discussion to have about lie detector tests. But I know Jim failed, didn't he? Don passed, but Jim failed. Right. Yeah. They're only as good as the person conducting the test. Yeah. And the questions that are asked are very important. So, and we never get to know. We never get to know, do we, what questions are until long after, you know, and then like footage might be, you know, footage from the interrogation or something might be released, but long after. And then we get to know what the questions are. It depends on the questions.
So why do you think whoever had those items brought them back?
Because I truly believe that they thought we were going to come out and look for Dylan for a day or two and go home and say he'll show up. I don't think they thought, Brenner especially, that it was going to go to the extent, and we were not going to leave that desert. And so I think he didn't want to be caught with it. So what better thing to do than put it back? And they were wiped down. I mean, they're smart enough to wipe them down. They didn't get anything off of them.
Let's talk about this shed that you mentioned earlier, with where Brenner said the shoes were.
Yes.
What is this shed, and what was kept in there? Was this a shed that Dylan would use to store equipment and stuff, or?
No, he just put his truck in it to protect the
It was
scene.
just a steel framed shed.
Yeah, it's just a little shed.
30 by 40 or something like that. Just big enough to back a truck into.
Thank you, Ruby Joy. His parents are divorced. Both have been extremely involved in this case together. I live about 15 minutes from Dylan's family, and I've no doubt about their integrity. So that's good to know.
It was there. I don't know that Dylan had ever used it before.
I don't think so. Not really.
Has it been searched by law enforcement?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know, was anything unusual found
So
on there?
there was some evidence that the FBI found that we've, like I said, we're not going to release. But the problem with the shed is on June 2nd.
Thank you, Blind Bob. Thanks to the 199.
Brenner pulled the grain truck out on his own and cleaned it.
Was cleaning the shed.
Cleaning
Law
the
enforcement
shed.
there.
Oh, I've heard this. I've heard this. Thank you, Sandra, for the €10. Hey, it's not often people donate in euros. 50k subs. Yeah, I hit 50k a couple of days ago. And Trixie Star for being my brilliant mod. I got some compliments as well. 50k subs. Yeah. Oh, Kavita. I passed the lie detector test when I was guilty. Oh, dear. Well, don't say any more. Don't incriminate yourself. Don't incriminate yourself in my chat.
Watching him said they can't do anything. I seen him take out take out four garbage bags and put them in the back of his pickup. Now you'll see when the Diesel Brothers interviews released, we did the interview from inside the shed. Trust me, he wasn't cleaning up garbage. It is full of his beer cans and garbage. Whatever he took out in those bags was to hide
right under law enforcement.
Right under their nose.
So you're
See, the thing is, the last update, we heard this last update that Jim cleaned the shed. But the other thing that I can't get my head around, I can't wrap my head around, that law enforcement were that inept in the first kind of initial stages of the investigation, that they'd set up stuff like, I don't know, like I guess a mini command post, for the want of a better word, on the property near Jim's, and then ended up moving because they worried that they were upsetting Jim, that they were going to annoy Jim. Now, I don't know whether Jim had said anything to them that he was annoyed at their presence, but if Jim's a friend or at least an acquaintance, wouldn't he want to help? Wouldn't he, wouldn't mind a minor inconvenience having searchers there and law enforcement around? And then right under everyone's noses, so blatant, to clean out the shed. And they didn't stop to think, like law enforcement didn't stop to think to check these garbage bags. Exactly, Deficient Dish. No wonder Candice was so frustrated. Exactly.
You're saying that there's still garbage in there.
Oh,
It's not like he
that's all it
removed
is.
Filthy.
He was specifically cleaning up specific stuff.
While he had a warrant.
While he had a felony warrant for aggravated assault.
With officers outside.
And a 19 missing-year-old.
So they could, right? I know it's all woulda, shoulda, coulda kind of talk here. But he had a warrant out. They could have arrested him. They could have looked at him and thought, let's just check into this guy. He's close by. Dylan was, the place where Dylan was last seen, likely. Of course, they wouldn't have the phone ping information back just yet. Let's just run a background on this guy. Find out. He's got a warrant for a felony, aggravated assault, weapons charges. Wouldn't you think that they'd have arrested him for that existing warrant? And then Jim wouldn't have had the opportunity to get rid of garbage. If he was in the process of getting rid of garbage, they could have opened the bags. There would have been suspicions raised. But no, none of that. None of that. Nelly. My 6-year-old son said he wanted to be a police officer. I asked him why, genuinely intrigued, and he said, I want to eat donuts all day. I'm starting to think he's right. My son used to want to be a police officer, but it was so that he could take people down. But he doesn't want to be a police officer anymore. Yeah, that was what he said. He wanted to take people down. Cat's back.
19-year-old missing.
Missing.
Yes. So none of it adds up.
I guess you don't know where those garbage bags ended up.
Nope. No clue. More than likely, when they went to Wendover that Friday, they took him, would be my guess.
Jim and Dawn when
Yeah.
they went to Wendover.
So, in case someone's just tuning in, James Brenner has been arrested on an outstanding warrant and is in jail. He's a person of interest. Is that
No,
what
he's a suspect.
he is? The suspect.
He is the one and only suspect.
In Dylan's
For now.
disappearance,
For
which
now,
they're now
yeah.
calling a homicide.
Well, they say they're treating it as a homicide investigation, but no, Box Elder has not switched it. It is still missing person / criminal.
Okay.
It has not been switched. So when Palmer said that, that was to appease the public. If you're going to say we're treating it as a homicide investigation, you need to change it so we can get more resources and more help.
Palmer being the chief deputy for the Box Elder
Yes.
County Sheriff's Office, his deputy, Cade Palmer, told ABC4 News in Salt Lake that there's substantial evidence that there was a homicide. So the interesting thing that I've also learned is that apparently Mr. Brenner's been in contact with your family,
Yeah, but Justin.
which doesn't happen a lot when a suspect, but have you all spoken with him?
Sassafras Cass says, my mother came home from vacation once to the FBI and state police in her dooryard. My high school friend had been murdered and her assailant hid the body on my mom's property. Mom was helpful. Of course, anybody would be helpful, wouldn't they? I mean, that's horrible, but you would be helpful. If you've got nothing to hide, surely you would be helpful. Surely. Anyway, Jim's been in touch. Let's hear the rest.
I haven't.
You have not. Justin, you have. And what have those conversations been like?
Oh, he's been hinting toward Chase. He won't say his name because it's a conflict of interest or something.
Chase Venstra
Venstra.
is another person who's still in jail, but not in connection with this case again, who also lived out there.
Yeah.
No, he did not live out there.
Or he was visiting.
He'd just go back and forth.
He'd go back and forth. So he
Yeah.
wasn't living out there permanently, but Dylan knew him,
No.
kind of. No?
Just ran into him.
Just ran into him.
Knew of him.
Jim's the weird guy that Dylan picked up a few days before he disappeared. The weird guy he told his mother about, that he'd seen this weird guy in the desert, but he didn't tell her that he picked him up and gave him a lift, gave him a ride. But that's Chase. So he was, again, very early on in this case, people talked about Chase. The family, I think, initially thought Chase had something to do with it. Chase was taken, again, pre-existing warrants and things. He was taken into jail very early on. So he's been sat in jail all this time as Chase. So it kind of makes sense that Jim would try to point the finger at Chase, you know, this weird guy that was only visiting, didn't actually live out there. Exactly, Sandy. That warrant was out for a long time, but why did it take so long to bring him in? Exactly. Thank you, Blind Bob. The truth is, I'm not really blind, but Bob is. Okay. Good stuff.
Yeah,
The barefooted man
the barefooted
that
man.
in the
Yes.
beginning was this suspicious man. So
Yes.
what James Brenner's telling you or trying to point a finger to Chase?
Mm-hmm. And trying to tell us to search the road that goes into Clinton, Utah, and take a four-wheeler. He wanted us to take a four-wheeler and time it. But what he doesn't know, I guess, is that Chase Venstra at 7 a.m, I believe, was on camera at the Flying J in Snowville, Utah at 7 a.m. of that Saturday morning.
The day Dylan.
So can't be Chase. Can't be Chase. He's on camera in another town at 7 a.m. on the day that Dylan went missing. So remember, Dylan spoke to his grandma at 10 to 7. I think it was 6:51, if I remember rightly. So Chase was on camera just 9 minutes later in another town. It cannot be Chase Venstra. So rightful that he's in jail doing whatever for the pre-existing warrants, but he's not a suspect in Dylan's case, and he never has been. The family knew that Chase, I think fairly early on, the family knew that Chase was on camera elsewhere, which gives him an alibi at the time that Dylan likely disappeared. So Jim can poke his finger at Chase all he wants, but that's not going to wash with law enforcement or anyone because Chase was elsewhere.
The day Dylan disappeared, the day Dylan was that morning when he'd called my mom at what time?
6:51.
6:51. So Chase was in Snowville at 7:30 or something.
And how far away is Snowville?
It's an hour
and a half, 2
drive
hours.
from there.
And then he was seen later in the day.
In
again.
Clinton, I think in Clinton, Utah, in a KFC on camera.
On camera.
Interesting.
And they pulled his phone records.
Jim was just leaning me towards him. He wanted to talk to me and Dawn and talk about a place that Dylan had hid some stuff on Dylan's property, which I have no idea where that would be. It's a flat piece of ground.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine where. And when we.
So I think it sounds to me like Jim's just playing games. Jim's just talking out of his ass, basically. I mean, it's absolutely possible that Chase might know something. So Gloria Dellen says Chase might have helped cover up and dispose of the body, which is why I think he's being held on weapons charges. Utah didn't want him to go to Montana. So they're holding him just in case anything comes to light. But he's certainly not the person that's responsible. As I said, I believe that there's other people who know exactly what happened to Dylan. I think Don knows. Anyone else? I don't know. But it could well be that Chase has an idea or knows what's gone on. But Penguin says, is there evidence that Dylan picked up Chase? Dylan says he didn't. Chase says he did. Why do we believe Chase? Well, his mother says that, it would be Dylan would say that he didn't pick him up. He'd want to tell the story, but he'd admit the bit that, his mother would get angry at. Why are you picking up strange guys in the desert? That's dangerous. So I could understand why he'd admit that. Ultimately, I guess it doesn't really matter. If Chase was elsewhere at the time Dylan is likely to have disappeared and most possibly lost his life, then he's not the guy responsible. So there's that. Thank you, Judy, for the 19.99. Another avocado. I am amazing. Thank you. Thank you. I don't think Dylan was having an affair with anyone, Nelly. That was something that, again, I speculated on this early on in the case. That was Dylan gay? Was this some form of, I don't know, anti-gay crime? Or was this a domestic that had gone wrong? But his family say he's not gay. And even if he is, it doesn't matter, because I don't think that the crime, thinking about it all in totality now, I don't think the crime's got anything to do with his sexuality. If he's gay or not, the family say he isn't. And if he isn't, then it doesn't matter whether he is or not, if it's not relevant to what happened. So I don't think he was having an affair with anybody, to be honest. It was talked about a lot in the early days of the case. It was Jim Terry, the PI, that the family initially hired, but then don't want anything to do with now, that spread all that around. I mean, it was a reasonable theory. It was a good theory to start with, but it's probably not the case at all.
We were out there with the Diesel brothers. I drove all around again
Yeah.
we second guess ourselves. I do.
Yeah,
all
we
the
both,
time.
constantly going through the
We
same things.
We checked the grain truck. I don't know how many times at the very beginning. I still wondered if I checked it enough. But so he was leaning towards Chase, and I wasn't sure whether what I was supposed to tell him, or if I should try to act like I was on his side, or if I was supposed to call him out. Well, he kept calling, and he talked to my mom, and my mom called him out on some of those things, and Brenner called Brenner out on some of the things that I just said. And he said, well, I can't talk to you anymore. You're going to have to talk to my lawyer. So my mom called him out.
Yeah.
And I didn't know when I talked to him, and this was a week later when she called him out, I didn't know really how I was supposed to talk with him. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I would imagine there's some sort of.
I wondered if I needed to kind of play like, yeah, Chase was the guy, and see if he'd talk and about some more stuff, but
because you want information out of it,
right?
You don't want to.
I wanted to keep talking to him more often.
Well, and see, Brenner, contrary to what people have said, he has had no outgoing communication. This is Justin and Larry and Karen are the first, so he has had no clue what's been developing. So he's been in there stewing, trying to figure out why he's the suspect. I mean, he does know that he's got an attorney, but as far as watching the news and knowing everything that we're pushing for, he's not had a clue.
Mm.
And so I think when Karen finally called him out, like, it was a slap. Like, no, we know, we got the evidence. We know you did something to Dylan.
And this is the great thing about putting someone in jail. Like getting them in, like you've not got enough evidence to charge them with the crime that you suspect them of, but you've got them on something, whether it's a pre-existing warrant, whether it's on a lesser charge, because they can't then interfere. They can't try to work out where the investigation's going. They're completely in the dark. Unless, I guess, people might be feeding them information. If they've got friends, they might be feeding them information. But their visits, their calls will be recorded, so the letters will be opened. So if they're in jail, law enforcement know exactly who they're talking to, what they're saying, and they can't be fed information that law enforcement doesn't know about. So that's another good reason why getting them in jail is a very good thing, not just to know where they are and so they don't run away. So that's good. And this is playing out. This is playing out in this case.
Larry and Karen are your parents?
Yes.
Okay. So that's interesting. Do you hope to talk to him again?
Yeah, I don't want to talk to him. I don't like talking to him even one bit. But yeah, I would like to talk to him and see what he has to say a little more.
In hopes of getting some information.
Something comes out.
Yeah.
So you've told us about the boots, which were moved, that he admitted to moving, the phone that was found in the pond, the gun and the key fob that were found inside of his trailer. As you're learning all this, I'm sure you're saying the evidence is mounting and pointing to this person.
Yes.
And is that just becoming frustrated because we still don't know where Dylan is?
It is overwhelming for us to have to, and like Jess said, we will have the same conversation 15 times and still not remember what each other said and have to have it again, because it is so overwhelming that, they shut us out. They had all of this evidence besides the phone in the first 3 days, and they did nothing. They letting that grain shed get cleaned out, I believe, would have gave us all our answers. I believe whatever was in there would have gave us, he'd have been arrested and we'd have got answers.
I believe that too. I absolutely believe that. Those first couple of weeks before the FBI got involved, I can't remember exactly when the FBI got involved, but the case changed. It became, it became more of a proper investigation once the FBI got involved. But Box Elder County were awful. They just thought, oh, there's this young man, his family are over exaggerating. He's probably just, wandered off somewhere, or he's gone on vacation and not told anyone. They just did not take it seriously at all. They didn't get the boots tested, for God knows how long. And they absolutely did not. They dropped the ball so much in not running at the very least, running a background check on Jim Brenner. And if they had, they'd have realized that he had a warrant out, and they could have nipped all of this in the bud. I absolutely believe that. I really do. I don't know what kind of training they get done. I guess there's a budget issue. There's not many officers in that area, but then again, even the most basic training, surely, or even some common sense might be helpful in cases like this. We see so many, and it's not just the US, in the UK as well. Some really botched investigations, but just seems that every case I'm covering, there's something gone wrong with an investigation, and you just think, oh, dear me, if only.
So it is so frustrating because we go back on it and we think back of all the wrongdoings by Box Elder and the total disregard for their own authority. I mean, they wouldn't even arrest the man that they had a warrant for. So it's frustrating. It's like, do something right now. We're at this wall of, we need to find Dylan, or we need Brenner to talk. Evidence is not going to magically appear.
I don't think Brenner will talk. Honestly, I don't think he will talk. Birdie says, where would you hide a body out there in the open farmland? The issue is there's lots of mines. Oh, thank you so much, Cheryl. That is so kind of you. An avocado battering down buildings by the looks of things. $49.99. Thank you so much. That is very, very generous of you. Thank you. There's lots of mine shafts. So if you know where to go, you could drive a couple of hours out and drop a body down a mine shaft. That would be my guess as to what's happened. But, it's not just flat. I mean, yeah, there's lots and lots of miles of flat desert, but there's mountains, there are places to go. And remember, if Dylan lost his life on the morning of the Saturday, Jim or whoever helped him had 2 days to hide the body, to get rid of the body. So there's my word, there's 1,407 mines in Elko County and 277 mines in Box Elder County. Wow. That is astonishing. There you go. So, who's going to go and check nearly 1,700 mine shafts? I mean, that is literally a needle in a haystack. Wow.
It's gone. Whatever we have is what we have right now. So one or two things need to happen, and Box Elder is not helping us do either.
Last time we spoke in person here, Candice, you had called for the Box Elder Sheriff's Office to remove themselves from the investigation. Chief Deputy Palmer responded to that request to ABC4. He said, removing us from the case just doesn't make sense. We were here from the beginning. We've involved other agencies like the FBI, even the one she's named to take the lead on the case. And then a viewer.
Yeah, but they've been rubbish. They've been rubbish. So I don't know why they want the case. Do they have drones that they can send into the mines? Because I know some parts of mines are really tight and not stable. They can send cameras down mines, but I don't know whether. I don't think they can send drones down mines, but they can send cameras. But at the end of the day, that's a lot of mines That's a lot of minds. And, you know, if you think about cases like Susan Powell, for example, you know, how long has she been missing? And it's likely she was put down a mine. But it's a lot. It's a lot. Oh, EquiSearch have sent out a drone to the area. So so Heavy D is out there. Yeah. So drone work has been done out there. EquiSearch have sent a state-of-the-art drone out there. How far would they realistically travel, says Nelly? I don't know. I mean, if you think, how far can you get in 2 or 3 hours? You know, if you think about it, it's and if you think about, they could have gone 2 or 3 hours out in any direction. It's just an astonishing amount of ground to cover and mines to search. So yeah, Susan Powell. I mean, how many searches have been out for Susan Powell and she's never been located? Never. I know, Deficient Dish. Those tapes of Susan Powell's little boy absolutely broke my heart. I know. And the fact that soon after that little boy lost his life as well, it just makes it all the more heartbreaking, doesn't it?
Sent me this email that she sent to the governor's office in Utah and the attorney general's office in Utah, asking for what your request to get a different law enforcement agencies. She received a response from a woman who handles constituent services. And basically what the governor's office said is that the request of the Box Elder County Sheriff, our State Bureau of Investigations was assigned our most senior homicide investigator to conduct an independent review of this case separate from the full-time agent working for the FBI task force. This independent review has established credibility in the Box Elder County Sheriff's Office investigation, even with substantial and pertinent evidence. Mm-hmm. So it sounds like they had someone investigate to make sure Box Elder was doing what they need to do. So what's your response?
How do you do an investigation when it's one-sided? Why would Justin and I never contact?
We have recordings of all the people
them lying to us, all kinds of stuff. How can you say that they've done their job when they didn't arrest the felon on day one? They wouldn't let us bring in bloodhounds. They didn't want the dogs out there, which they would have picked up on Dylan's scent, knowing what was in the grain shed now. When the key fob was found, when the gun was found, when the boots were found, they literally laughed at us and mocked us in that desert. They were ignorant. They were arrogant. They lied, and we got proof of it. So how do you have an investigation when Box Elder says, oh, this is the evidence that we have, and this is how we found it? Because it's lies on how it was found, because it wasn't Box Elder, it was us.
It's awful. Absolutely awful. Awful. The Big W says, I'm sorry I'm late, but you may have covered this, but is the other missing young man connected? I think you're meaning Aidan Clune. No, he's not connected. It's the same county, or I think it's Elko County he disappeared from. Correct me if I'm wrong. But it's quite a few miles away, completely different circumstances. And they were able to track Aidan for like 20 miles. And then his trail just disappeared off into the mountains. So no, I did a video early on in the case, because Aidan had been missing about a month before Dylan went missing. And I did a video, I think it's over on my other channel, Michelle Walks. Are these connected? And without virtually no evidence, I said, I don't think they are. And I have done a follow-up video on Aidan. I might have done 2 actually. And they're completely different circumstances. So no, I don't believe they're connected. Put Jim in a closed room with Dylan's dad. Countrymen sort things out that donut eaters can't. I agree with you. Whoa, thank you so much, Esme, for the $49.99. Really appreciate your dedication and passion for truth and justice. Well, yeah. Yeah, I want to see justice. Justice is what we're all here for. You want to see the bad guys get sent down for what they've done, or the bad girls, and you want justice for the victims. So I know exactly, Birdie. What genius said no bloodhounds? I believe Candice breeds bloodhounds. I believe. I might be wrong. Yeah, I think Aiden's was to do with the mental health crisis. I believe that as well. I believe that as well. Oh, we've got Jim Terry in the chat. Hello, Jim. Hello. Okay, let's carry on.
So that's like I told you. That'd be like the IRS saying, hey, I'm going to audit you. And I say, you can have my QuickBooks, but you can't have my bank statements to back it up. That's exactly what that investigation is one-sided, and it is a bunch of garbage. I can't even believe they publicly came out with that and did not think how furious that would make us. This is our son. This is not a game of we need to make Box Elder look good. This is our child that they totally disregarded. It's not a good investigation, and they haven't done their job. And we had to...
With respect, Jim, you're not coming on panel. I'm not bringing you up on panel. It's not that I'd never do a panel. I don't appear on panels. I don't do that, but I'm not saying I'd never would. But Jim, you're not coming on my panel. Sorry, you're not.
Screen for how many months? We had to have how many thousands of people write these letters and call to get the SBI to join, to get Box Elder to accept some help. The drone footage that we're doing now, that Diesel Brothers came out and did for us, I have on July 7th, Box Elder County on text, rejecting that drone, basically saying it's of no use, no drone footage is going to help find Dylan, we want nothing to do with it. But now it's public. Now Diesel Brothers have stepped in and helped us do it. Guess who called yesterday? Saying they'd help us fly it. Then texted me today. Amazing what happens 3 months later when it's made public and somebody else comes out and does their job. Still 5 months later. That is not a good investigation, period.
Anything you want to add to that, Justin?
I think she got it all right there.
So how do you, I mean, is there a...
Thank you, Trixie, for timing Jim out. Nah, I'm not interested in having Jim on my panel. Some of the things he said about this case, I mean, all respect to you. If you like Jim, that's fine. I listened to a lot of what he said earlier on in the case, and I wasn't impressed by some of the things he said, and I'm certainly not going to have a conversation with him while I'm listening to what Candice and Justin have to say about their son. So, no, not going to happen. Sorry, Jim, not going to happen. Not on my channel. I'm not saying I'd never bring anyone up on panel. You never know. One of these days, I might do a panel. I used to do panels on my other channel before it was Michelle Walks, before it was True Crime. I used to do panels on other topics. So I've done panels before. I've been on lots of different channels, not True Crime channels. But when I started with True Crime, I thought, you know what, I'm gonna panels can go terribly, terribly wrong. They can go very right, and you can find out a lot of stuff. But I've sat back and I've observed, and panels, yeah, can go wrong. Or, like I said, they can go very right. You can find out stuff. But at the end of the day, in this stream, I want to listen to what Candice and Justin have said. I want total respect to Candice and Justin and the rest of the Rounds Cooley family for what they've had to endure from a really terrible investigation, social media backlash that they had earlier on in the case. I want to respect them. I want to respect Nate Eaton for having a very good interview. I want to react to the interview, respond to the interview in my own way, and the channel The chat is being very respectful, and it's not a matter of how many viewers I can get. And yeah, I might get a few more viewers if I get Jim Terry on panel. That doesn't matter to me, to be quite honest. It doesn't matter to me. The amount of viewers doesn't matter.
Working relationship?
No.
So, I mean, do you have any sort of contact with law enforcement?
No, when we had the drone, is he the lead detective more?
Yeah.
He wouldn't come over and say nothing.
He
wouldn't
came
do
out.
nothing. He came out.
He came out while you were flying.
Kicked dirt and walked around.
Wouldn't come within 150 yards of either Justin or myself.
But you are confident with the FBI?
Yeah. And we need people to realize, because I keep rehearing in the interviews, people say, you know, the family wants the FBI or the SBI to take over. The FBI cannot take over, and we've never asked for that. And Justin and I are fully aware that the FBI can't take over. This is not a federal case. The FBI is assisting, and they've been amazing. The SBI, they say, is assisting, but other than the independent review, we have no clue because nothing is happening. They're not out there looking for Dylan, and they're not questioning the suspect. What are they doing? What is their ongoing investigation? What are we waiting for? A year when we're sitting on the same exact evidence and the same exact suspect? Something's got to happen. It's not going to magically materialize out of the sky. So I don't know what the SBI's done.
Do you think they might be questioning Brenner, but just not telling you?
He's lawyered up. They can't. They haven't even, yeah. And we understand that even if they charge him, you know, he's still lawyered up. She's going to say what he can or can't say. We totally get that. But with him reaching out in the family, knowing how he reacted the few times the FBI agent did get to talk to him, I truly believe the man will crack and tell us.
You do?
I truly believe he will crack. But Box Elder has to make that happen. If they're going to, for whatever reason, want to hang on to this case for prosecution, whether it's to save face or whatever they're thinking, which we have no confidence in them prosecuting, they haven't even worked the case. They need to be working towards finding Dylan, working towards getting him to talk. None of that's happening.
I think, honestly, they've got to find Dylan. I mean, not just to, you know, take him home and lay him to rest, but for justice. I think they have to find Dylan. But that is it's a brutal environment with so many possible places. And if they can't get Jim to crack, if he's lawyered up and he won't talk, and maybe he will, I don't know. But who else? Who else is out there? Who else is out there who might talk? You know, you just never know who else might say something. I don't know. But it's 5 months in now, and so sad.
You mentioned the Diesel brothers. So you all went out there, and they're going to be releasing video of your search out there on the property. Yep. Where do you go from here? I mean, you've released some information today. I know you all have been really persistent to keep it in the spotlight because Dylan's still missing.
Right.
Which is, as you've said, the most important thing to you.
Yes.
So what happens from here?
We keep going forward. We have the drone.
We keep doing the drone searches.
Yep.
And
we got the wash pinpointed that we have questioned, that Brenner has said multiple times to multiple people, if you're going to get rid of a body, you put it in the wash. So we're going to get that done.
Explain what that is for those not familiar with the area.
So a couple, I think 7 years ago, I don't know the exact timeline. So there's washes everywhere out there. So in the desert, when it rains and it all pools into, basically just think of it as a mini canal. But some years back, the dam broke, some dam up top, and the wash, the way the water came down, the wash, you can land a helicopter in it. It's huge,
wide,
deep. That's where we seen the pickup tracks that we've really questioned. We got a guy in Louisiana who's going to help match up Dylan's tire serial numbers to the videos and the pictures I have of the wash. And see, that's never been done either. And we've screamed and screamed and screamed about it.
That is crazy. That is insane. that if Jim has said in the past, if you want to hide a body, put it in the wash, and there's tire tracks that could possibly match up to Dylan's, why has that not been done? Oh my word. My word. It gets worse and worse and worse. Yeah, Karen, worry about the chain of custody issues, vital pieces of evidence, and how that might play into charges against whomever they charge. There's so many things that law enforcement have dropped the ball on. They really have. Dear me. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. Just crazy.
Like, we've got these videos, I took good pictures, and we got Dylan's tire still. Like, somebody help us. Was this his pickup? And if it was, that means that's probably what Brenner used, and that's where Dylan's at. But we haven't been able to get that done.
And you were saying just a second ago, Brenner has said if you're going to get rid of a body, put them in the wash.
Yep. And it's not just Brenner, multiple locals out there. I mean, that's the thing.
It's just kind of known, unfortunately, that's what, because
it begs the question, how many bodies are in the wash? You know, going back so many years, if this is well known in amongst the locals, I mean, of course it will be. You know, if this is talk, and a lot of that will be joking, you know, over a beer. You know, oh, if I got rid of a body, I put it in the wash, and it doesn't mean anything. But why has that not been done? Why has that not been done? My word.
it would go, you'd never find it?
Well, no, because so that wash dead ends, like it comes to a wall, but so on the top of it, as the soil erodes, so if you put the body here,
It sloughs off.
and you go to the top and you disturb it, it'll slough off 10 tons of dirt on top of that body.
Oh, wow.
We have been screaming.
Oh, wow. That is, oh, yeah, running amok. So maddening. I feel so bad for the family. I do. That this could have all been avoided. You know, if Jim had been taken in on the warrant that he got out in 2021, Dylan might well still be with us. If Jim had been arrested in the first few days, if an officer had just thought, shown a background, they'd have all the evidence they needed, most likely. There's just been a chance after chance after chance that has been lost. And for basic things that people have been talking about that have not been done still. Oh, my word. Lauren Dellen's here with all the stats here. It's widely said that there's more bodies in the West Desert per square mile than anywhere else in the United States. Don't know if it's true, but that's the perception. Well, I could believe it. If these things are so well known that, oh, I'd hide a body there, said jokingly. Yeah, because there's probably bodies out there. Because, such a body's great uncle, had a friend who buried a body, who put a body out there and it's never been discovered. And then such a body else. Yeah. Wow. But the thing is, if the locals know about that, why wouldn't that be one of the first places where law enforcement won't want to go and search? And the longer the time goes on, the less chance there is of finding Dylan, because the landscape changes, the landscape moves. Wow.
About this wash for the first week. First week we've been screaming.
Because we've heard what Brenner has said. If you
Yeah.
want to hide a body,
And we've
you
seen
go in
the
wash.
pickup tracks, and Dylan's pickup was pressure washed, except for there was mud in the wheel well. They didn't get the wheel well. That means that pickup had to go somewhere during that rainstorm. When's the last time it rained out there? Like February, I think.
So here's a scenario. Right. We know that Dylan's phone pinged at the grain shed or around that area. Then it went back to Dylan's 5 miles away. Then it went back to Jim's. right? So back to the area of the grain shed. Then it went to Lucin Pond. So here's the scenario. Dylan went, this is just a scenario, this is just a possibility, this is just my opinion. Dylan rang his grandma, said, I've got to go and put my grain in because it's going to rain. Rang Jim and said, Jim, I've got to get in, open the gate for me, right? Jim was annoyed. Jim Brenner was annoyed. Dylan drove the 5 miles to the grain shed. A fight broke out. Something horrible happened to Dylan. Jim thought, oh no, I've got to get rid of this body now. Somebody else has to be involved. Like, did Jim walk 5 miles? Like, how did the phone get back to Dylan's 5 miles away? And then Dylan's truck has been pressure washed, except for the mud that's in the wheel wells. So what if, right, they went back to Dylan's to get his truck, right? Or somebody went and got Dylan's truck, went back to Jim's, Lucin Pond, dropped the phone in the pond. That's where the phone stopped pinging. That's where the phone was found. And then they travel out somewhere miles away to the wash, and his body's dropped into the wash, and that's where the tire tracks have come from. I've only seen one photo, I think, maybe 2 photos of Jim, and he doesn't look like he could walk 5 miles. And handling a dead body as well, you know, dragging a dead body around. He's going to have had to have help. He really is, in my opinion. In my opinion. I think there's people out there who know, who helped. But who?
I think March.
Oh no, it has had some rain.
Before.
Oh, before that?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it was March or something when Dylan was out there. So where did he get the mud? He wasn't driving through his pivot. So where did that pickup get the mud?
Sounds like you have a lot of help outside.
Yes.
Exterior people that watch the interviews and say, I can help.
Yep.
And I'm sure that gives you a little bit of comfort.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what's kept it going. That is what's kept us out there and getting the help and getting what we need to find Dylan and bring him home. That's been the only thing that's kept us going, is the outside help. Elko County, they've been awesome to work with. They had a team all ready to go and search the wash, and the way you fly over it and you feel like you're in, like, there's no way I thought it was in Utah. I'm like, there's no way. You just are right past Montello, but the way the border runs, we found out yesterday it's in Utah.
Mandy, Don is short. Maybe he helped. How close was he to Jim? Jim and Don are friends. So if Jim did have help, I think Don would be one of the people that perhaps knows a lot more. Jim's not in good health. He's I don't know, he's about 60, I think. Something like that. He's kind of short, very stocky, very stout guy. Not very nimble. So, yeah.
So we're going to go get that. They can analyze that. Twyla and Jean, they kind of have their roles where Twyla analyzes this side and then she sends it to Jean and says, hey, something doesn't look right here. And then Jean furthers. Amazing. We've had people ask, and you and I talked about it, can we see the images? And we're not going to release any of the images because people want to overanalyze, and they're going to say, oh, well, that is a hole. And we can say, no, this is what it. So we're just going to keep those to ourselves because we don't want to start a whole crusade of no, Dylan's really in this one. And, keep it to ourselves right now. I want to eventually, when we bring Dylan home, show people the technology, help EquiSearch get more of these drones, because that's all we have right now. Like that's all we have right now. And without those guys, we wouldn't have it. We wouldn't have even known about it.
No.
We wouldn't even known this technology was out there, and they've got new stuff coming out that can do infrared. It does all the lenses at once. I mean, it's unreal.
That's wild how far technology has come, and hopefully it can get you guys some answers along with potential, words from the suspect.
Yeah, that's we need something. We need, like I said, we got two options right now, and neither one of them are being, Box Elder wants to step in now and talk with the drone and offer help, but we're confident in pilots that we have on our own, and I think that's the route we're going to continue to take, because we feel if we relinquish control, it took us so long to get this done. If we don't have control and we don't have that drone and have it in our possession, or have somebody that we trust has it,
who knows when they'll do it?
Who knows when they'll do it?
Yeah.
There'll be excuse after excuse. So if we keep control of that part of it, we can arrange it ourselves and go out and get it done.
Well, the reward for information leading to Dylan is now $200,000.
Yeah.
And if you've got information, you can be anonymous. They'll take anything, I'm sure. Any solid tip that might help.
Thanks to Diesel Brothers for that.
Yeah, Diesel Brothers.
They matched the 100,000. It was a surprise.
Yeah.
So
Surprise that
so
kind of
100,000 from you all, your group, your family, and friends. And now Diesel Brothers is throwing in another 100,000. Yeah, kudos to them, and we appreciate you guys coming in and talking with us. Hopefully, there's some big breaks here as you've shared this new information, and we will stay on top of it.
There we go. So I thought that was a very good interview, very interesting. Just heartbreaking, just so heartbreaking that the family is having to go through this 5 months down the line, and they're no further forward really than they were back 4 months ago, because law enforcement have just been awful. This case could have been wrapped up in very early. So sad. But everything looks like it's pointing at Jim. I think they've got their man. I think it's a matter of time now, and somebody needs to talk. And there's $200,000. Somebody who can call in, somebody who knows something that can be that one missing piece, can call in anonymously and can collect $200,000. Wouldn't that be worth it to call in the tip? If you know something, the thing that's that missing piece, $200,000. It's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. Anyway, guys, I thought that was a good interview. And we'll have to wait and see. It's another one of these cases that we don't get regular updates, and the only updates we get are from the family. Law enforcement, they've never done a press conference, they've never done any publicity themselves, nothing. If it weren't for the family really, really working the media, both social media and the mainstream media, and East Idaho News and Nate Eaton taking an interest in this case, that we're getting anything at all. So kudos to Nate Eaton and East Idaho News. The link to that interview is in the description. Please do go and watch it. If you haven't watched it already, please do go and watch it without me, without my commentary. Give them the view. They deserve it. And so I'm going to go now. So thank you all. Thank you all for being kind and considerate and respectful in the chat. Thank you so much for the super chats and the super stickers. Some really generous donations tonight. So thank you so much. Thank you, as ever, to Trixie Star for moderating. And I'll see you all very soon. Bye, guys.